Okay. Welcome back to the last session of my short course on is pop music fake or real? My name is Don Siegel from Syracuse, New York. I'm a musician and a scientist, and this is a blend of both. All right, so is today's pop music fake or real? How does today's pop music compare to that of the past? We've been going over the differences in pop music and how music now is in a sense formulaically put together by Max Martin in Sweden and other producers. The pop stars today have very little input into how they sing the song or the lyrics of the song. They generally don't create their songs anymore. They're done by these international producers in a machine-like way. So the question is today's pop music really less original than in the past? How does it differ in the past? We can determine this. We can answer this question. Is it fake? Is it real? Through the big data ability of modern internet. In other words, there are these places on the internet, many of you may know, such as Spotify, YouTube, Pandora, where they've cataloged and they access for their listeners hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of songs. And all these songs are in databases so that researchers could actually get access to them and digitize them and deconstruct them into all their elements. It's really quite amazing. And this is a big data world in the sense of a lot of research that's going on in the social sciences as well as my own physical sciences. So here's one example how music has been broken down. I showed you before a little pie chart showing you have pop music, rock music, country music, jazz, etc. Well, each of these genres are broadly described. When I say jazz, everyone has an idea in their head what jazz is. But you can take jazz and break it down into all these different little genres that have similarities or differences. So here's just one little figure here showing how rock music has been broken down into 100 or more different little separate genres. Noise rock, slowcore rock, neo-psychedelic rock, grunge rock, electro-clash rock, drone music, trance music. I have no idea what these things are, but the big data people do this so that if you click on a song you like, you can develop a channel specific for yourself, and it could go through all the thousands and thousands and thousands of songs and pick similar music of the kind that you like at a very, very neuro level. So that's what's done. And so we're now able to go through all this, and we, the musicologists, scientists, can go through this and figure out what's happened to music. So a paper came out not long ago called by Percino and others. Notice that where they come from, the section for science of complex systems. Another one's from medical university. So this is a multidisciplinary effort, and this research article says instrumental complexity of music and genres and why simplicity sells today. And so in this paper, they come up with lots of scientific figures, and here's the one that I like the best. Now, I've kind of deconstructed it myself for you so you can understand it. I am not showing all the math. There's a lot of math in this paper. But you have this little graph, and on the left-hand side, you have a degree of how similar the songs are. And if you listen to them, how similar. So at the top, upper left, that means the songs all sound the same. And at the bottom left, it means they sound quite different. And then on the horizontal line or axis, it goes from simple to the left to very complicated to the right. So these are a variety of the song types, the genres from blues, classical, electronic, folk, punk, funk, hip hop, and so on. You can see the list there. And I've kind of outlined things in colors to make it easier for you to see. So let's look at the electronic hip hop and the modern pop from the 1990s to now. And you see they fall in this little orange blob in the upper left-hand corner. And you can see they sound the same, and they are very simple. As you move to the 50s and 90s rock, the little blue oval, you see they are not so similar, and there's some different musical structure in it. If you look at jazz, which is what I really like, it's complicated and things sound quite different depending on who performs it. So you can work through this sort of figure. You can look at it, and you can really see how these musical genres truly are different. Today's music is simple, and it sounds very similar from one performer to the next, where in the past things sounded differently, and it was more complicated in chord structure and tonality. So this made a lot of noise, so that the Smithsonian magazine out of Washington actually wrote this little news release: science proves pop music has actually gotten worse. I'm not sure you'd say it's worse, but it's certainly different than pop music of the past. So what are the differences? Number one, there are fewer changes from one tone to another tone. What's a tone? That's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So there's fewer changes from one tone to the next in modern pop compared to the past. There are fewer different tones. So you've got 8 tones in the diatonic scale, and older music from the Beatles on down would use all the tones. Now only fewer tones are used. So it makes it simpler. And the loudness has gone up. That's very clear. So here's another article done by Bill Briggs, where he took several hundred of the pop songs that made the #1 list in the past from 1950s to 2010. And this is the number of words in the song, in the actual the material that's actually sung. You can see in the lower left-hand corner in the 1950s, there were actually less words sung in a Gershwin song than a song today. Now you have lots more words. Wow, you say, well, that's got to be better. There are more words. No, because in the 1950s, you had less words, but there were different words. So it was more intellectual, I guess you'd say. Now there are many words, but they all sound the same. Now, so the Australian Times came out with a little press release saying, old fogies like me have long proclaimed it, parents have long suspected it, and aging rockers have long feared that even thinking it would turn them into all they used to despise. What's that? But it seems that believing today's music is samey, boring, and, well, just too loud does not necessarily make you a reactionary. It's scientific truth. Well, maybe, okay? What I think has happened is this. For some of the modern musical performers, I like art, and I really admire Picasso. When I first saw Picasso, however, I saw the right-hand image, his cubist. And I said, I don't understand that, because I was more into representational art. But then I went to Picasso exhibit, and I saw the man was an incredible portraiture. And in fact, he was so good and so skilled in art that I saw a video of him where he had a studio with a small ceiling, and he took a piece of chalk and he started on one end of the ceiling, making a perfectly straight line. He switched hands, and the line was completely straight to the other side. And then he drew a perfect circle with one hand, and he drew a perfect circle with the other. The man had incredible artistic talent. So he started doing representational art, and he chose to deconstruct as an artistic expression. So I have a lot of respect for an artist like that. He has the credentials to make an intellectual decision to go from one place to the next, and I really respect that, as opposed to someone who just throws stuff on a canvas but can't show me that he can draw anything. It's my own personal predilection for what I like, perhaps. An example of an artist that can do this is Lady Gaga. Now, Lady Gaga, I urge everyone here to go to YouTube and start clicking on Lady Gaga. And if you want to see an incredible performance of Lady Gaga, go to the YouTube of her performance doing the halftime Super Bowl performance. I forget what year it was. It was stunning as a performance. It may not be everyone's liking because there's some overt sexuality in it. No one's doing it, but it's pretty upfront sexuality, as much of modern video music is. But I'm going to show let's have you listen to, I'm not sure you can see it, an early clip of Lady Gaga when she first came on the scene, to give you an idea.
During election years,
I'm sorry, there's another ad.
Promises. Then they seem to forget about people.
But your clothes are
Now, bear with me. It may not be for everyone's taste. This is a verse. This is pretty good. This is not a hook. No hook yet. Still the verse. Here comes the hook. This is, in my mind, pretty good pop. This is pretty good pop. And I've never seen Lady Gaga performance live, but I want to. It's one of my bucket lists. Okay, so this is what she was doing early on in her career. Okay, now she won a platinum album not too long after this for the following YouTube, or for the following record. What is this? Is this Lady Gaga? That's Tony Bennett.
I said I really can't stay.
Maybe it's cold outside.
Isn't that something?
Maybe it's cold outside.
Platinum record.
I wish I knew.
Tony Bennett says she's one of the greatest jazz performers he's ever played with. She knows music. And she made the choice. So she started doing pop, where she made her living, and then she chose to go to jazz with Tony Bennett. And now, what is Lady Gaga doing? She's gone to Max Martin. And so she wants to create some hits. And here's a Max Martin piece.
I'm off the radar.
Starts with a hook. It's country.
I can't wait to smoke them all. Hold back like marble. Blow it in your face. Blow it in your face.
There it is.
Blow it in your face. I can't wait to rev you up faster than you can see Ferrari.
This is going to transition to another hook.
Can't wait to
See, the phrase is repeated over and over and over. But it is kind of addictive. Here comes the hook. You can imagine the kids singing along. There they are. Second hook. A third hook. Now back to the first hook. Okay. Lady Gaga, what Lady Gaga, I think, has done is this. She started with kind of a deconstructed rock, high energy, high performance, and made the choice to go into jazz because she could do it. And she likes it. And then now wants to make a whole bunch of money. So she's gone back into performance and uses Max Martin to compose her pieces. She's an artist. She can make these decisions. So the question is today's pop music real music? I have to admit, even though when I began this little exploration that I thought it wasn't music at all, it was fake music, I say yes, it is different. It's sophisticated in generating earworms and hooks in a way that has never happened before, I think. Even back in the days of Tin Pan Alley, on that area, the music did sound a little familiar and similar. I mean, once Gershwin came in with his cycle of chords and I've Got Rhythm, there were 100 songs or more that were devised that copied that chord progression. But they did sound different, and the performers were involved in the making of the songs. Now, the performers aren't as much. But yet, I guess it's real music. I would call it real music. This last song by Lady Gaga, I heard it when I was driving on a trip, and I started hitting the steering wheel and saying, "Wow, that's great music. Whose is it? It's great for driving. It's great for traveling. I liked it." And so, yes, it's real music, but it's just different. So, and so people have talked about how music has evolved. I've talked about it. You can see here evolution of music. You know, the caveman now with electric guitar. But you can see from the 1960s, hip hop, rap, gangster rap, old school music was kind of not very good, but not very popular. Now it's exploded, and classic country's gone down. Jazz has pretty much disappeared. There are waves of evolution, and we're just in a wave of evolution now where hip hop and the highly produced songs are in vogue, you know, on the pop radio. There is a very large indie scene that you can access on the internet, which is very different, where all sorts of very interesting music is coming out, but it's not broken into the mainstream because it doesn't have the production value behind it, the crazy YouTubes that are produced, and so on, which is what gets onto social media. So there's tons of little niche markets where you can still hear very different music that you might find interesting that's being composed today. Could some of our feeling about hip hop and Max Martin type music be age related? Okay, I have to admit, you know, I'm up there. I turned 70, and so yeah, could it be that, you know, my music is the best? You know, the music I listened to when I was a kid, that's the music, and everything else. Just like my father would tell me, the Beatles he couldn't stand, the Rolling Stones he couldn't stand. He said, "Why don't you listen to Duke Ellington?" You know, well, I do now. Okay, why? It turns out, if you look at the great popular music artists of the '60s, and even later, Lady Gaga, she's much younger, but there's her album Cheek to Cheek with Tony Bennett. Linda Ronstadt, who every boy in my generation fell in love with Linda Ronstadt back in the '60s. Okay, she produced a number of albums as she got older with Nelson Riddle, The American Standards, Rod Stewart, upper right-hand corner, The Great American Songbook. He did 3 albums, the whole songbook. Rod Stewart, a rocker. Carly Simon, who wasn't a rocker, but she was very, very popular, as one knows. She did My Romance, American Standards. Bob Dylan, of all people, The Great American Songbook, 2 CD set. In the lower right-hand corner, Willie Nelson, the great country artist, still Stardust album, The Great American Standards. It turns out as pop artists get older, they're going to jazz, which I find comforting. And there's actually an article that was written about this in 2013, Music Through the Ages, Trends in Musical Engagement and Preferences from Adolescent to Middle Adulthood. I'm a little beyond middle, but and what we find is that when you're young, the bottom line here shows the age from 10 to 65, and then on the vertical line scale, it says standardized scores, but this is a mathematical thing that was devised. Basically, intense music is liked when you're young. You like intense music, punk, rock, heavy metal, you know, dancing. You're full of energy when you're young. You want to dance. But as you get older, you like sophisticated music, the blues, jazz, and folk. And this was shown actually through the scientific study to be true. And so you even see the rockers beginning to move out of that intense music as they get older and less energy, going into music that's more sophisticated, more intellectual. So I think this is a natural evolution, and some of the angst that some of us feel with modern pop, I think it could be age related. You know, we're not as energetic, and we don't want to do mash dancing as much anymore. And I think it's a normal progression. When I was young, and that's me in 1971, believe it or not, I'm not standing up so you can see my little gut. But then in 1971, I loved the Jefferson Airplane, Surrealistic Pillow. And that's about as hard rock as you could get in the 1970s, the age of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, you know. But now in 2017, I like Gershwin, Cole Porter, the more sophisticated stuff that's a little quieter and reflective. So the bottom line is enjoy whatever you like in music. All music, I think, is real music. I often wonder what would the classic music performers of the past, Bach, Beethoven, what would they do if they could sample, digitize music, have music synthesizers, even autocorrect? What would they have done with this new technology? Maybe nothing. But my guess is that they were pretty creative and they might have tried something different. So enjoy whatever you like in music. I hope you've enjoyed this course and hit the radio and have a really great life. Thank you for listening.